I'm waiting to see how long it will take. Not bad, not bad. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is lovely to see you all here. First off, the explanation for, we can't use the sanctuary doors is we're actually trying to conserve the coolness that is in here. Sadly, our swamp cooler, which I came up yesterday to turn on, so it would be lovely for us in here this morning. And when I turned it on, it started howling and shrieking at me. So I figured that was not a good thing. And instead of letting the motor or something burn out, I shut it down. And the one in the social hall made a much gentler chugging sort of sound. But when I went back in there about 10 minutes later, the room was appreciably warmer than it had been. It was blowing hot air in. So we are going to need to tend to both of the swamp coolers. So the logic this morning is keep the blinds down, the lights off as much as possible. We do have fans, feel free to adjust them. I would ask that if you're uncomfortably cool because you're close to a fan, please get up and move. Don't shut it off or we'll all just melt into little puddles. However, hopefully it will be reasonably comfortable by the time, for the time that we're here, and we'll be fine. So that's the explanation for that. I just located my camera in a new spot. So good morning to those who are watching online or will be later. I'm the Reverend Dr. Nancy Hitt, Carol Eaglehart, Sandy Donovan-Hines, Graham Cast-Hecht, and Kathy Donovan-Hines will all be speaking this morning. Today is Pride Sunday. Yes, round of applause is fine. Our program is titled, This Is My Story. You will hear personal life stories from a number of people this morning. Our service is founded on principles number 1 and number 6, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We hope that our time together will expand your realization of those principles in your own life. Our thanks today go to a number of people, to Steve Poyani, who is behind our camera, to Carol Eaglehart for leading our music, to Graham Cast-Hecht for our animal ministry moment, and to Elliot Kane for our moment for all ages. We also thank Graham and Roxy Cast-Hecht for distributing the bulletins and greeting you as you came in. And we thank Donna Johnston for the loan of her pride flag on the wall behind me. I remind you that there are safety supplies on the table at the rear of the sanctuary. Please help yourself to hand gel, gloves, masks. Well, I actually did find child-sized ones, so if the child comes back, and they happen to be pink, go figure. However, so whatever you have need of, disinfecting wipes, etc., please help yourself to at any point in time. And the really good news is that you all have bulletins that are printed on the good paper. Now the good paper was purchased so that the ink wouldn't bleed through and you could read the bulletin more easily, but that also means it's heavier and it makes a great personal fan. So yes, please feel free at any point in time. And those of you who are artistically inclined, if you want to fold it, in that little accordion shape, that is fine with me. Go for whatever makes you comfortable. I also just wanted to remind everybody, in case you didn't see it when you came in, that our gifts of love and commitment and joys and concerns need to go in the appropriately labeled baskets in the center aisle because we are not passing a microphone or an offering plate yet. And if you need a card to write joys and concerns on, there are blank index cards on the table at the rear of the sanctuary. And pens, hopefully in your pews. Now, announcements for this week. Rio the dog needs your newspapers. Our paper caper donation bin is on the porch outside the social hall door. I want to thank you for your donations to Storehouse West this past month. We contributed 130 pounds of non-perishable food. Now, next Sunday is Town Hall Meeting Sunday. We have a full agenda for that meeting. It will include a discussion of our current safety practices, which ones are helpful, which ones are not. Please plan to come to the meeting and share your thoughts and your opinion. Your board has also determined that we need to launch a growth initiative now that we are back together as a gathered community. This is also on our agenda for next week's town hall meeting. Not because anyone thinks that we can develop a complete growth initiative in one meeting, but because it's urgent that we begin to talk with each other about our collective future. So please check your midweek email for more information about that. And our programming team, which seriously you should all be dying to be part of, meets today in the, listen closely, the air-conditioned green room at 12:30. So if you have ideas about future Sunday services or would like to participate in leading one, please come. And also, please note that those were two separate categories. If you have ideas for future programming, that does not automatically mean that you have to be up here leading those ideas. So, two different things, both are needed. Now I invite you to please stand as you are able and join me in our chalice lighting, which is a unison reading. The colors of the rainbow are embedded in our flame, proudly calling all people to love as they are able, to be who they are. We respond with pride, grateful for the call and the response in all of its marvelous complexity. Shalom. Please join me now as we affirm our aspirations together. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom. Please remain standing now, and Carol will lead us in our chorus.
This song was written by a lesbian from Alaska named Libby Broderick. And some of you have heard it before. It goes like this. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. Sing it now. How could anyone ever tell you you're anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you're less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. Now look around you, and this time sing it to all those people around you, all right? And remember, they're singing it to you as well. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Please be seated. We're going to pick up on the theme from that chorus as we take a moment to center ourselves, to power down, switch gears, and focus on the things that we came here seeking today. So I invite you to sit back in your chair or your pew, whatever, as comfortably as you can. Uncross your ankles, your knees, your wrists. Close your eyes if you are comfortable doing so. Or choose a focal point for your gaze. Empty your mind of tension and unrelated chatter, and focus on your breathing. Breathing in and out, full and deep. Let your mind go blank, just breathing gently, fully, deeply. Hear the words we just sang again. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? Let memories surface that you connect with this question. How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? Feel your integrity, the fullness of who you are, past, present, and even into the future. You are you. How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? Picture yourself actively loving in whatever way comes to your mind. Examine this image. Claim it. Accept it as defining a vital part of you. And how deeply you're connected to my soul. Take a moment to picture all of the ways that love connects you to life. Knowing you are beautiful and whole, loving and loved. Carry that feeling, that knowledge, back into the here and now as you refocus on your breath. Breathing fully and deeply. In and out. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Shalom. Naming our joys and concerns connects us as a community that cares for each other. In a moment, I will read those that you have put in the basket, and Carol will be lighting a candle for each one. I invite those of you who will be participating online to light your personal candle as we light our last white one here. And here is happy news for the entire congregation. Susan Fox married Walter Chase yesterday. So for them, we light a candle of joy. Gary Johnston is home healing after having several cardiac procedures, and so for him, we light a candle of joy at his healing. And similarly, Jimmy Stevens is recuperating following rehab for repeated falls. So we will light a candle of joy for his progress as well. Tom Hughes has a joy that he has just returned from a visit to family in gloriously rainy and cool Northeast. I'm envious. It was the first time in 4 years. And also, a good friend has given up on California and is returning to New Mexico, and maybe he can get her to come here. And I didn't make that up, it says so right here. So, Fanny, we have a joy. All right, I'm ignorant. I'll read it. It says the Astros are winning, but somebody tell me, who are the Astros?
Canceled baseball team.
Okay, well, good for them. That's a candle of joy. And he also has a couple of concerns. The first is that his van won't start and he needs to know if anyone here can recommend a mechanic. And the second concern is the increasing anti-Semitism in the left, which is definitely a concern. Graham mentions a concern finding fairness in voting. So we light a candle of concern for that. And Joanne Prochnow had an operation on her jaw this week, and so we wish her a speedy recovery. And lastly, we light an additional white candle for everything else that still remains in our own hearts and minds. We light the red candle for all of the victims of racial violence. Today, we lift up those whose sexual and gender identities compound their racial oppression, committing ourselves to arresting these evil systems. Shalom. And now I invite Graham to come up and do our animal ministry moment with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Trust can only occur between two willing beings. For a human to understand trust, she needs to surrender herself to another. When a human surrenders herself to a horse, and that horse in turn surrenders himself to her, something extraordinary takes place. Hearts and minds open. The human has only to think of what she wants that horse to do, and he does it. Communication takes place seamlessly and effortlessly. Horse and rider become one. Now this is a little poem by a kitty, and the kitty says, there were these aliens, see, with heads like flutes and 5 huge mouths, and they flew into the kitchen and ate up all Mommy's shrimp. Then they turned to chase me into the garden here. Why, I barely escaped with my life.
And now I would like to introduce Elliot Kane, who will be reading an original poem that he will share with us.
Good morning. This does go hand in hand with the red candle. Dear black trans woman, you stood proud in the middle of a crossroad where every turn led you to homophobia, racism, sexism, and transphobia. You stood there like a beacon for queers and straights alike, Unlike the world around you, you opened your arms in love to everyone who needed a hug. Dear Black trans woman, you were discriminated against by your own kin. The very people you fought for called you embarrassments. Dear Black trans woman, this is an apology. This is a thank you letter. This is an ode to your courage. Courage to be yourselves in a time where your very existence was looked down upon and discussed. Dear Black trans woman, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to fight so hard just to live, just to dance, just to work and love and eat. I am so very sorry that we have not done more. We should be so much farther than what we are now. It has been 50 years since the Stonewall riots, and I am still under threat of being punished for using the bathroom. But you stood there and looked into the fire. You looked into the mirror. You looked into the crowds of unaccepting faces like a fortune teller and saw what our future would be like if you did not fight. You didn't know that your actions would change the world. You just knew that you had to try. Dear Black trans woman, you fought so hard for people like me, and you didn't even know that I would exist. Oh, how you must have felt alone, and yet you were strong and defiant in the face of everything. Dear Black trans woman, we are following the path you once did. Our youth has picked up the weight you once carried on your shoulders. We carry that now. With pride in every painful step towards liberation, to true equality, and further into the beyond. Dear Black trans women, like mothers, you taught us how to bare our teeth in the face of oppression simply by being ourselves. You taught me that my identity is valid. Dear Black trans women, I dream that you all could see us now. I dream that you could see what we've worked for, what we've accomplished. I dream that you could know that you, Marsha, Pay It No Mind Johnson, Miss Major Griffin Gracie, Victoria Cruz, and so many others that I've searched for but never found, that you could see the seeds you planted have grown roots and sprouted. Dear trans youth, I cannot help but to feel some sort of connection to these people. Even though I'll never know anything more about them than an article or a YouTube video, these were real women, real mothers of our community. This makes me feel empowered. It makes it so hard not to address every stranger like a lifelong best friend. It makes it so hard not to walk into every building like I have a place there, to walk into every bathroom like I've always belonged there. Dear Black trans woman, thank you.
We're going to sing From You I Receive, To You I Give. 402 in your hymnal if you need it. And honestly, if I had a copy of Eliot's poem, I'd put it in the basket. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Happy Pride to you. It is a time of celebration, and I can see we're celebrating here this morning. It's also a time to remember that it's a call for action to protect the rights of all people. LGBTQAI+, all of the people. And not States, but internationally. Just this week, I got a message from Amnesty International about people, young people who are right now in prison in Turkey just for having a gay rights demonstration. So we need to get it together and be helping people not only here but abroad as well. Now I realize that we're preaching to the choir this morning, right? And so I thought it'd be very interesting for you to hear the stories of the people who are really right here among us. Would you like to hear those stories? Yes. Say yes, or it's going to be a real short service. And so I'm here this morning to tell you not my story, even though I've been out as a lesbian for 47 years, but to tell Jamie Hart's story. Now, Jamie doesn't like speaking in public, but I told her this is a really important story for people to hear, and she agreed to let me tell it. Jamie was born in 1940. Now, she can remember having crushes on other girls, and never had a relationship with a woman until she was in college, her first love. She kept letters from her love in a little treasure chest at the head of her bed at home. One day, her mother broke open the locked box and read the letters. She dragged Jamie to the family doctor and to the minister, both of whom said, separate her from her girlfriend. Jamie went back to college, but her mother kept harassing her and threatening to put her in an institution. So after 2 years of college, Jamie went into the Navy to get away. Out of the frying pan and into the fire, as Jamie says. Things started out great in the Navy. She graduated from boot camp as honor woman of her company, which meant that she was considered to be career material. They respected her so much that they kept her on at the training center as a physical training and water safety instructor. But then, someone she'd been at college with showed up at the training center and started spreading rumors that Jamie was gay. Now, this was 1960, and at that time, being gay was a crime. Jamie was confined to barracks, and then the interrogation began. The Navy interrogator was a very persistent man, she says, and I was a still shy 20-year-old. I finally admitted to acts that to this day I don't know what they were, as I didn't know the words for things then and was much too embarrassed and shy to even consider asking. I just needed it to stop. The interrogator wanted her to give him names of other women who were lesbians, but she never gave up any names. Most service women in her situation received undesirable or dishonorable discharges. But Jamie went to the chaplain and told him that she wanted to change, so she was able to get a general discharge under honorable conditions. And that meant that years later, in 1973, she was able to join the National Guard. Her goal was to get more education. She was married to a man, and she thought that would cover her. She served in the Guard for 4 years, but the marriage just wasn't right, and they divorced. At that point, she met the love of her life, a woman named Lori. Jamie quit the National Guard, knowing that if they ever found out she was with Lori, she'd get kicked out again. Lori and Jamie were together for 27 years, until Lori's death from lymphoma. Being named honor woman of her company, being a medic in the Guard, and even being named Soldier of the Year 1 year in the National Guard. None of that counted for anything, Jamie said, because she was gay. She still looks back on it with anger. Anger at the injustice of it all. So we're going to hear some more stories, and Sandy is going to come up first and tell us hers. terrified until I saw the step.
Do you want a student? And yet you're a student. Give us 30 seconds.
Well, I want to describe some of the things that have changed in the last 30 years. And I thought my example should be something from our own lives, Kathy and mine. I'm going to describe the adoption of our daughter Alex. Can you see my head? It was about 1990, and Kathy and I have been together about 5 years. We lived in an upscale neighborhood in Carrollton, Texas. We both had good jobs. We were comfortable and we were happy. And we thought that we would have another home to offer other children. And since I had 2 biological children and they were both grown, we decided that we wanted to do this. My goal, actually, when I was younger, actually a kid, was that I wanted to have 2 biological children and adopt 2. So that had always been in my mind. My brother was adopted, and to me that was just another way that you make your family. So we first approached the foster care system. We went to the foster care training. We were in class together. During that time, we could never acknowledge or admit that we were a couple. We were single, 2 single women, and that was how it had to be. So that was our first start, is that we were lesbians. So that was a problem, and we understood at that point because we were used to life the way it was. We knew what we had to do. We had social worker friends who told us that any woman-centered books had to be removed from the house or at least from our library area. I had to make the guest bedroom my bedroom, so that we had 2 totally separate bedrooms. When the social worker came to visit us, and she took a tour of the house, and she said, "So, what are you and Kathy? Who are you together?" And we said, "We're friends." And that was hard to say. And it was hard to acknowledge that this is what we had to do. So it got very uncomfortable for both of us. And so we decided to go to a private center, private adoption agency. That adoption agency did the same thing in terms of interviewing us. The social worker, when she came out, said, "You know, you're such an excellent family. I'm so happy to be able to recommend you." She went back, and she came back and said, "I apologize. We can't do this because it's a fundraising year. And in fundraising year, we can't have any stuff, any negative stuff." Of course, we were the negative stuff. So that ended that. There was actually another attempt between the first 2. So finally we started going to lawyers. We went to several lawyers. This is in Texas, by the way. We went to several lawyers. The lawyers said, "No, you can't do this. It's not possible," or else they just wouldn't take the case. So we finally found one lawyer who said she would handle it, but only if we found the birth mother. So we had to go out and find the birth mother, which we did. And I'm pretty proud of us for that. When we found the birth mother, the lawyer said she wanted to talk to her, she wanted to visit her. When she interviewed her, she said, "Now you know your child is going to be raised by 2 women." She said, "Yes." "You know they're going to be lesbians." She she's going to be living in a house with lesbians. She asked her in several different ways to make sure that she understood. And yes, please. So after she accepted that, this woman understood what she was putting her child into, she agreed to take care of the legalities. And from that point, it went really smoothly. Now I have to tell you that the birth mother had chosen us as parents. She had interviewed several parents. She had decided on us. So she actually knew beforehand what her child was getting into. So she was really upset by the questioning and told us about these questions that were asked of her after the fact. So the adoption went smoothly. We had in court, the judge said she hadn't seen such a happy family in a long time. My sister was there, the cousins were there. It was just a really joyful time. Now, on a different front, my job, who thought I was adopted as a single parent, had this big celebration and shower and all kinds of things. Kathy's job, who thought she was adopted as a single parent, also had the same thing for her. Now, Alex is biracial, so Kathy could not legally adopt her. So I had to adopt her because she was part black. Just ignore that part. That was decided on, and that was how it went. And then as soon as we could, we legally went back to court so that Kathy could have conservatorship, which gave her all the same rights other than allowing Alex to go into the military and one other thing. So that was fine. We raised her in Carrollton, Texas for a number of years. Our church was very welcoming and they loved Alex, and she was singing in the choir. She was the only child in the choir. She used to sing solos and so forth. It was really a wonderful time for us. It was pleasant. Things went really well. Let me just check and see if there's something else to say. Now, just going to how it would have been now, if we had done that now, things would have been very different. First of all, we would have been evaluated as a two-parent household. Our relationship we would have recognized as a legal union. We could have adopted as a couple, and we could have been ourselves. We could have kept the library the way it was, and we could have been ourselves. So that's just an example for adoption for us. It would have been very different now, and I'm grateful for those changes. There's still a lot to go, and of course this is Texas, so there are more things to do in Texas. Thank you.
And speaking to us next will be her partner, Kathy.
First of all, for those of you that can't see my shirt, it says, equal rights for others does not mean fewer rights for you. It's not pie. So, I'm going to talk to you today about the good, the bad, and the ugly. When I first came out in the 70s in El Paso, Texas, the world was, as Sandy mentioned, very different than it is now. For example, I never thought that Sandy and I would have the rights and responsibilities that automatically come with being married. There are over 1,200 of them in case you're wondering. we were informed that with civil union, for example, we could have, gotten those rights and responsibilities through other legal means. Not quite true. We could have gotten a couple hundred of them, and it would cost a few $1,000, but marriage is a whole different ball of wax. Now, we've been together 25 years when we married. It's 37 now. Back to the 70s. So there were some good things about it. In a way, it was kind of like belonging to a secret club. We had women's bookstores, we had women's bars, women's coffee houses, and most of all, we had women's music. These things bound us together and made us feel safe. And they celebrated us in a world that was largely hostile to us. I really miss the safe gathering spaces that they provided and the special energy in those gathering spaces. And I give special thanks to all the witnesses for music that literally saved people's lives. The chorus that Claire selected for today is a perfect example. Imagine you're a teenager in the middle of Idaho feeling like you're the only one in the world with those feelings. And suddenly you stumble across the music of Meg Christian or Holly Meir, Carol Leaderhart, and you discover that hundreds of thousands of other women feel the same way. And not only is it okay, it's wonderful. We have a lot fewer teenage suicides if we had music like that today. Of course, we have the bad stuff too. It was the usual risks, like being kicked out of the family, driven from your church and community, being fired for a job for no other reason, being refused treatment by medical professionals. We had a pediatrician say they weren't comfortable treating our daughter. There were the various acts of vandalism, theft, being insulted and accosted on the street. But there were some lesser known and sometimes odd things too. Now, the laws I'm going to address were in effect in El Paso, Texas, so they probably weren't very widespread. At the time, it was legal to refuse to rent an apartment or home to two women on the grounds that they might be lesbians. There was no such rule for men because they assumed that men competed so fiercely that they would be too busy sowing their wild oats and would not be coupling up. So women, however, they figured might rent an apartment as a couple and then break up and use that as a base to go out and seduce their wives and daughters. Anyway, that's the way it was explained to me. So, my current partner and a friend and I decided to rent a house. And as we were literally signing the paperwork, the woman looked up at me and said, "Are you sure y'all aren't lesbians?" And I looked her in the eye and very sternly said, "Oh, no ma'am, I've never even been to Portugal." And in the moment of confusion, signed the paperwork and so, it was also illegal, and this is complicated, illegal to wear fewer than 3 items of your gender-specific clothing. Okay? So you wear more than 3 items of the clothing that was appropriate for your gender. Now this particularly targeted drag queens, but the police had stopped and checked women too. So, do you know which side women's shirts button on rather than men's shirts? I could never remember, frankly. And, men's jeans fit me much better than women's jeans. Today, they do, because I have really long legs and no butt. But knowing which side the shirt buttons on becomes a critical piece of information on a Saturday night. Plus, I've been doing a whole lot of martial arts at the time, and I was really fit and pretty muscular. Women's classes don't have a lot of room in the others. So it really, became a little daring for me sometimes on a Saturday night. And on those times, frankly, when I was forced to wear the obligatory dressing heels, I looked like a linebacker in drag. Frankly, I kind of felt like that too, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, so we talked about the good and the bad. Then there's the ugly, and there was plenty of ugly, because the world was largely hostile to us. Lesbians were raped with impunity. I had a number of friends who were raped. And the defense was the guys that said, well, it was consensual, they asked for it. if the woman said, I never asked for it, I'm a lesbian, they'd say, fine. Bring me some statements from women that you've had affairs with, and we'll accept that offense. You can imagine how that went. I also ended up giving first aid to more than one friend after they'd been stopped by a group, and it was always a group. With the line, if you want to be a man, then fight like a man. One of my friends quit her well-paying job at a high-tech firm to care for her partner during the last 3 years with her painful, debilitating cancer. They got no support from the friend's family because, lesbians. The dying partner, however, had money, and so they were able to carry on without my friend's income. They'd been together a number of years, so they were pretty okay in that regard. When her partner finally died and the will was read, my friend inherited everything, as was totally appropriate. It took the family 2 months to get the will. They gave her 1 week to vacate their house. They let her take her clothes and a tea service that they purchased together. Unfortunately, this was neither a unique nor an unusual situation. So then there's Matthew Shepard, Harvey Milk, and the Uptown Lounge in New Orleans. And I bet nobody here has ever heard of the Uptown Lounge in New Orleans. We have one person who's heard of the Uptown Lounge in New Orleans. That's unusual. So, reverse. 1973, 4 years after Stonewall, a still unknown person, or persons still unknown, chained shut the doors in a gay bar in New Orleans. And then they tossed a firebomb to the room. 32 men died, 15 were injured. There was very little investigation by the police. There was no outcry or clamoring for justice by the churches, and mostly just jokes from the news. And these people have heard my story, because it could have been me. And I'm going to stop and point out that this is continuing today, especially in our trans community. And it has the same tragic results. But I'm glad my story continued. I met the love of my life. We made a wonderful family. We have great, incredible extended family. We have amazing, loving friends. And I'm thankful every day that we've gotten as far as we have. Like Sandy indicated, there's a long way to go, but we've come a long way to go.
Thank you, Kathy. Makes me think about the Pulse nightclub too, which was 2016, 49 people killed. And finally, we have Brim Cast-Hack to tell us an even more unusual story.
Well, this is the condensed version of Roxy and I. We met, we were 5 years old in kindergarten on Long Island in New York. I saw her sitting on the floor playing with the Matchbox cars. I went over to her, I sat down and I picked one up and she very politely gave me the raspberry. We've been together ever since. This was a big struggle in school because we were together so much. We considered ourselves at that time best friends. But when I was 14 years old, I was outside in my backyard by myself, and I had an epiphany. I said to myself, I love her. I know I love her, but I'm afraid to say anything. When I did, she said, well, I love you too. So from 14 years old on, we were more than just friends. I was in the hospital a lot in the 90s. because I have chronic pancreatitis. And the only way Roxy could come and see me was to say she was my sister. So that's what we did. We had to lie. Then when, I backtrack a little bit. While Roxy was becoming a veterinarian in Cornell, in New York, I came here and became Rio Rancho's first animal control officer, both knowing we were going to get back together again, but I had to give her her time to become what she wanted to become. In 1995, we had a Unitarian Universalist minister come to the home, and we got a Holy Union. It was Halloween, and what we did was we had a Halloween reception, and it was a really lot of fun. We worked together very often with animals. While she was doing her veterinary work, I was a veterinary technician. And we've been together ever since. We moved back here in 2007, and the rest is history. Thanks.
Thank you all for your stories. And I have to confess, I can't read the clock from here. What time is it?
11:53.
Oh, we have 7 minutes. Woo-hoo, okay. Then I want to just share one thing with you, and I'll try to keep that to 2 minutes, and then if there are any questions or comments, I will repeat them back so you can all hear them, and we'll close our service after that. But I wanted to explain one piece on our table here. And sorry folks at home, I have no idea how this is going to come across on video, but if you can see it clearly, it's a stained glass circle. The stand was made to hold it. It also has loops up here, so if I wanted to hang it in a window or against a wall or something, it would do that. It has the colors of the rainbow around the outside, and inside the clear glass is an etched inverted triangle with a cross in the center of that. Now I know the cross is a hard symbol for a number of you here, so let me explain this as best I can. This was a going away gift to me from the Metropolitan Community Church of Boston. I preached there for about 4 years when I was back east. And as you do know, my thing, quotes, is peace. In a Christian context, that comes across as nonviolent atonement theology, which amounts to the idea that God did not want Jesus nailed to a cross, that Jesus was a victim, and as such understands human suffering in a very unique way. This congregation got this like nobody else did. I was preaching the same perspective at my local Baptist church, and I would go in on Sunday nights to downtown Boston, to the Old West Church, historical building, and worship and preach and celebrate communion with MCC, which was founded as a church for the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community by a fellow named, Troy Perry. He had been a Baptist minister, he was gay, that did not work. So he fixed that, and he went out, founded his own church, and pulled in that entire community. And it was a wonderful place to be. They gave me this because with the triangle is reminiscent or stands for the patch, the pink triangular patch that Hitler assigned all gay people to wear during his reign of terror. And that congregation saw a distinct direct line connection between all forms of persecution, oppression, victimization, and the cross and the man who had been nailed to it. So that's the symbolism behind this. It's very important to me. I can only say I'm an ally when it comes to all things LGBTQIA, but I wanted to know what this is. So I'm going to put it back down on the table, and if anybody has anything that they want to ask or to say, I actually do have a traveling mic, so maybe if I just hold it, we can figure out how we can do this. But I see people nodding their heads, so I guess that'll work. Questions, comments? Danny? Yeah? Well, that's all I get there, because people have trouble hearing.
I had two things I was going to say, but I've decided to say neither, because listening to people's stories, that's what it's really all about. This is not a time, this is not a day for politics, anthropology, or anything else. Those of you who have shared your stories with us have blessed us by doing it. Thank you.
Others?
I want to thank Elliot so much for the beautiful poem you wrote and delivered.
I was worried at first that the poem was going to be a little bit too dark for our congregation, but while yes, Pride may now be a celebration, it was and it still is a time to fight for our own rights and remember the people who we have lost and who have fought for us.
Protection.
So Elliot, that was indeed a very moving poem, and I would absolutely love to see a copy of it posted on the Facebook page, or a way for us to have a copy of it, because it's very meaningful.
Elliot has me in with our website person. So you guys can work that out, but yes, it would be great. Anyone or anything else? All right. Carol's going to lead us in hymn number 170. Let's stand as we are able and open your hymnal to 170. We are a gentle, angry people.
Oh, God.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We're justice-seeking people. We are justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We're young and old together. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We're a land of many colors. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We're gay and straight together. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We're a gentle, loving people. We are a gentle, loving
now to join me in the words that are printed in your bulletin as we extinguish our chalice. Our flame is extinguished, yet its colors live on in the world around us, surrounding us with love. May we continue to celebrate all of life with pride and joy. Shalom and blessed be. Go forth to live and love as nature calls you to. Take pride in loving yourself. Take pride in loving others. Being careful never to confuse the two. Shalom and amen. And remember that air-conditioned room for the programming room.